it's Leela, the proud Poly Kinky Queer Slut. Today's question is sex addiction real? And that's paraphrasing a question from an actual question I received. So the actual question that I received was in the context of talking about whether, how you balance life and sex. And I'm just going to read it to you right here. I'm afraid that if I go back to hooking up with a lot of people, it would be hard to stop for some reason, almost like an addiction. This concept of sex addiction, I find fascinating, and I find it to be a thing that is, it makes me angry and fascinated all at the same time, to be honest with you, because this is an idea that's put out there quite a lot. And I was talking to a friend of mine the other day about porn addiction, which is closely related. And he pointed out that in a culture like people who identified as Christian, where the relevant portion of Christianity in this sense is that the church is generally sex shaming, and saying promiscuous sex is bad. So the people coming from that culture that says promiscuity is bad reported themselves to be an addict, even though they had much less time watching porn. They're much more likely to call themselves an addict with less time watching porn than people who did not consider themselves Christian, who were from a less sex shaming culture and watched a whole lot more porn. So part of this is perception. And I am not a subject matter expert, and I do not want to belittle anybody's genuine addictions. I want to say that right up front. It is absolutely possible to have behavioral addictions to all sorts of things that do not serve you in your life. And that can be, gambling's one, obviously. Like any behavior you have can become addictive if as a behavioral choice. And that is different from chemical dependency addictions for sure. Things like nicotine addiction or any kind of drug addiction is a chemical addiction as opposed to behavioral addiction. But your brain can give you behavioral addictions to like your phone, to all sorts of things. If you find yourself with an actual addiction to anything, sex, messages on your phone, foods, anything, seek professional help, because behavioral addictions are valid, and it's good to work through whatever psychologically bringing you to the place where you have that compulsion. And I do not want to belittle that in any way, so let me say that up front. And then I want to say sex addiction is an overblown idea that has done so much harm, because most people who are quote unquote sex addicts are just freaking sluts who aren't getting enough sex in their daily life and don't have outlets for it and healthy ways to express it and healthy ways to get it. Most of what we conceive of as sex addicts, it's just another way of shaming people for their sexuality. So that part pisses me off, it's considered okay in society to be like, you know what, I'm concerned about you. I think you might be addicted to sex, when a person's just trying to get their basic needs met, because sex is a physiological need for a lot of us. As much as we need to make sure that we're eating right, we need to make sure we're having a healthy sex life. And that's an important thing. And I think that when we get too worried about the addiction, then we lose track of getting our needs met in ways that make sense for us. So here is my advice for anyone who would like to get out there and have more sex, but is afraid of it becoming overwhelming and becoming an addiction. Again, not a subject matter expert. This is just what I would suggest from my lived experience. And that is, go do it. Make mistakes. Go ahead and let the pendulum of your life swing that way a little bit and see what happens. Do an experiment. You can always go back, and you can always stop, and you can always make different choices. You can always say, okay, I've gotten to this point, and then from this point, my reality looks different, and so now I'm going to make other choices. It is most likely not going to be the case that you end up addicted to anything. And let's explore that. So worst case scenario, you get into a situation where you are having a lot of casual sex. You're finding that you're obsessed with sex to a point where you feel that's an addiction. Well, then the next step is getting help for that addiction from therapy, from programs, things like that, and then resolving those underlying mental health concerns and moving forward without that baggage in your life anymore. I see no negative to this. I see only win-win. And this is a great example of how being brave and confronting what you want and going to get what you want can really be freeing on a deep level, even if if it does have some mistakes, even if it does get messy, that's okay. Um, it's important for us to stop sex shaming ourselves. First, foremost, we need to change that self talk in our head and stop saying that we're bad or wrong because we're like this. We're not. We are made how we're made. We are fine. We are beautiful. I am more in tune with my personal biological imperatives going out to have a bunch of sex with people than I was not having a bunch of sex with people. Um, that is a truth I feel in my soul. And so, I know it's hard to be brave. I know it's hard to put yourself out there. I know that those fears are real. And more power to you for even reaching out and asking the question. I mean, all of the good wishes out there in the world. And just the fact that you asked the question and you're aware of this as a concern, I mean, I think that reduces your risk of actually needing to worry about it by a good bit. Um, Generally, the things that blow up on us are not the things that we're aware of and watching out for. They're the things that sneak up on us. But yeah, that's my 2 cents. And again, not a subject expert at all on addiction, but I am something of a person with some lived experience about sex shaming and hyperbole. And yeah, wad that all up and throw it out with the trash and be brave. That's my advice. So, hope that's helpful. Thank you very much for listening. This is Leela, the proud Poly Kinky Queer Slut. You can ask me anything by emailing me at kinkyqueerslut@gmail.com. Thanks for listening.